Alright, let's get right into it. For almost 100 years, this was one of history's most gripping cold cases. What happened to Russia's last royal family? But you know, this isn't just a story about a revolution. This is a straight-up 80-year-long forensic investigation. It's a detective story where the clues were literally buried in a Siberian forest and the final truth was hidden deep inside our own DNA. Okay, so let's set the scene. Our case kicks off on July 17, 1918. 11 people, Tsar Nicholas II, his wife, their 5 kids, and 4 of their most loyal staff are woken up in the middle of the night and led down into a cellar. They're told it's for a photograph, for their own safety. Of course, it was a lie. Now, let's fast forward a bit. Way forward to 1991. The Soviet Union is gone and this hidden mass grave is finally uncovered. Investigators start the grim task of figuring out who's who. But right away, they hit a massive wall. There are only 9 bodies in the grave. The math is just plain wrong. And that one simple, chilling question, where are the other 2, became the heart of this entire mystery. 2 of the Tsar's children, the young heir Alexei and one of his sisters, were totally unaccounted for. This single question created this void that allowed almost a century of myths, legends, and imposters to rush in and take hold. Could they have actually escaped the massacre? Okay, so we know for a fact that 11 people were led into that basement. You had Tsar Nicholas, Tsarina Alexandra, their 4 daughters, their 1 son, and 4 staff members. 11 people. You gotta remember that number. But then, get this. When the main grave is finally uncovered in 1991, the experts only find the remains of 9 people. 2 were gone. The young heir, Alexei, and one of his sisters. This gap, biological vacuum, is really the origin of the whole mystery. It's what allowed the myth of survivors to just take root and explode. So, how on earth do 2 bodies just vanish? To get that, we have to go back and piece together the absolute chaos of the crime scene itself. Let's put it mildly, the execution was a total forensic nightmare. The basement was tiny, we're talking maybe 4 by 5 meters. The killers left a truck engine running outside to drown out the noise of the gunshots. Inside, the gun smoke was so thick you couldn't see a thing. It was just absolute chaos, bullets flying everywhere. And then afterwards, they had to move the bodies in a huge hurry, in the middle of the night. It was basically the perfect storm for losing track of who was who. And all that chaos, it was amplified by this incredibly bizarre discovery that the executioners themselves made. A clue that seemed almost, supernatural. And it became the foundation for every single escape theory for the next 80 years. So as the firing squad opens up, something really strange happens. The bullets just seem to bounce right off the Grand Duchesses. For a few seconds, it must have looked like they were invincible. And this isn't just a legend. We actually have the executioner's own words from his notes after the fact. He described the bullets as literally dancing around the room. But this wasn't magic. It was something way more practical and pretty desperate. See, the family was terrified for their future, so they turned their wealth into a kind of portable bank account. They had sewn about 1.3 kilograms, that's nearly 3 pounds of diamonds and gems, into the linings of their corsets. And this hidden treasure acted like a crude, but surprisingly effective, bulletproof vest. It made the bullets ricochet, and it prolonged the whole horrific ordeal. And this is the absolute key here. That diamond armor didn't just make things messier. In all that smoke and confusion, with bullets flying every which way, it created the very real possibility of survival. It's what let the whole legend begin, because it made it seem plausible that in all that chaos, maybe, just maybe, someone could have gotten away. So the possibility of an escape was already there, but what really threw gasoline on the fire was a deliberate lie from the new Soviet government, which created the perfect stage for an army of imposters. This was a calculated piece of disinformation. The Bolsheviks announced that Tsar was dead, but claimed his family was safe. They were trying to stop the family from becoming murderers, but what they really did was create an information vacuum. And that lie swung the door wide open for hundreds of people to claim they were a surviving Romanov. One of them was more convincing than all the other rest. Her name was Anna Anderson. And for decades, her claim to be the missing Grand Duchess Anastasia was incredibly compelling. She had physical scars that seemed to match the execution reports. She knew all these intimate details about royal life. She even convinced some actual Romanov relatives. But in the 1990s, science delivered a verdict that stories never could. The DNA test was a 100% mismatch. Her story, which had captivated the world, was a complete fabrication. But while science unmasked the imposter, it left everyone right back at square one, asking the same central question: where were the real missing children? The final answer wasn't gonna come from stories or eyewitnesses. Nope, it was buried in the earth, just waiting for modern biology to come along and decoding. I mean, just look at this timeline. It took nearly 90 years to finally locate the last pieces of this historical puzzle. That's a whole lifetime of waiting, of rumors, and of heartbreaking false leads. And get this, in 2007, a group of amateur history detectives, using not much more than old historical accounts and metal rods to poke at the forest floor, made the discovery. Just 70 meters away from the main grave, they found this little depression in the ground, a burn pit. Inside were 44 tiny, scorched bone fragments, and the evidence showed they'd been doused in sulfuric acid and set on fire. Now, this wasn't an accident. This was a calculated move by the executioners. By separating two bodies, Alexei and his sister Maria, and trying to completely obliterate them, they were hoping to confuse the final body count forever. And to be absolutely certain, scientists used a brilliant method called DNA triangulation. They matched the DNA from those fragments to a relative on the Tsar's side, then to a relative on the Tsarina side, and, for good measure, they even confirmed it with a sample from Britain's Prince Philip, who was a grandnephew of the Tsarina. It was a definitive 3-point confirmation. And the results, they were conclusive. It was a perfect match. The bone fragments belonged to Alexei, the young heir, and his sister Maria. They never escaped. They were there the whole time, victims of this calculated plan to literally erase them from history. The 80-year-old cold case was finally closed. So the discovery brought a final scientific end to the Romanov mystery. But the story itself gives us a powerful lesson about how we find truth, especially when history is filled with lies. I mean, think about it. The Romanov case is really a turning point. It shows you just how flimsy witness testimony and official propaganda can be when they go up against hard biological fact. For almost a century, the story was king. And then, science got the final word. There are 3 huge lessons here. First, biology always outlasts a good story. Stories like Anna Anderson's are powerful, but DNA is permanent. Second, it shows the incredible power of mitochondrial DNA to build these genetic bridges across generations. Because it's passed down directly from mother to child, it acts like a permanent biological record. It's a thread of truth that can outlast decades of legends, lies, and political spin to connect our world directly to the past. The forensic data proof with stories never could. The Romanov children never escaped that cellar. They were all killed that night. Biology finally spoke for them when history tried to silence them. And in doing so, it closed one of the greatest mysteries of the 20th century. But you know, with all the science and the data, it's so easy to forget we're talking about real people. Just hours before they were killed, with no idea what was coming, that Tsarina wrote her last entry in her diary. She just described a simple family evening and a quiet Siberian night. It's just a haunting little detail that reminds you these forensic data points were once lives. And that really leaves us with this final thought. What the Romanov case proves, better than almost any other, is that history isn't just a story you read in a book. It's an active crime scene. And it demands that we look at it with a critical eye, that we question the official story, and that we use science to let the evidence speak for those who are silenced.